Hey guys, Infidel 1258 here, back from Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. Sitting in my office, got my computer in front of me, got literal tools to work with. I got a microphone and lighting. I've got soundtracks behind me that are not coming from a secondary computer. Vegas was amazing, but man, that was my first time trying to do that sort of thing, like cover an event on the road from the event outside of my office. So fun, but so tricky. And there's so many cool things that happen in the town hall. This video is going to be about parts of the town hall. I'm going to focus in on a few things that were really important to me. In this one, we're going to talk about so we got two questions from Captain Dingus, aka Lomicron. And the first is that, could there ever be abilities in the game that you actually are going to suffer from? Like, you choose a monster that's obviously strong and it gives certain key benefits to your team, but it might do amazing damage and have high hit points, but it hampers your team in some important respect. We can show an example in the video here ahead, but first the question is around whether that would ever make sense for Splinterlands. And I want to hear Matt's answer because I think it's going to point us in the right direction. And then he has a follow-up question. He asks whether neutral monsters or any type of summoner, whether neutral summoners or any type of summoner for Splinterlands will ever allow cross-pollination between splinters. Perhaps there could be a water/fire summoner, and the lore could explain it has a mother from the fire splinter, it has a father from the water splinter, and therefore it can control both, or something like that. And if that would ever make sense. So let's listen to the question, and then let's see what Matt has to say. We're going to listen to the question, and we're going to listen to the answer, because I think this is a cool insight into the future development and the growth of the complexity of our favorite NFT blockchain-based video game, Splinterlands. Okay?
In-game name? Captain Dingus is where I am in Discord, but Lomicron is what I play in Vermont. Yeah, I'm that
guy. Oh, nice. Tattoo guy.
All right. So the actual question I have now, so in certain features, you have cards that add to your collection, right? This adds +1 for Obsidian. All creatures get magic, right? But what about monsters that are overpowered maybe for low mana cost that give your team debuffs? What about that?
We definitely would like to do sort of what we're like negative abilities, right? And we had some on the table, potentially for Rift Watchers that didn't end up going in. There was a lot of discussion about how we show that in the UI. It's really easy to just code it in the back end so it technically works, but how do we convey? Because right now every ability is a good thing, right? So we need to make it clear that some abilities might not be good, and other things are buffed to compensate and things like that. So it did not make it in for Rift Watchers, but 100% would love to do that for Rebellion and future sets.
And if I could ask just one more quick question. So the advent of a neutral summoner brings the question, will there be any cross-splinter or mixing splinters?
Not right now for this neutral summoner. That is also something we're looking at. Maybe for a rule set initially, you can choose 2 splinters to start. I mean, if we did something, some people were like, oh, what if we could choose any card in the game? And you're like, it's already hard enough to choose with just 1 splinter and neutral. But yeah, we're going to experiment we have all sorts of cool, ideas. Most come from the community, and they're all on the table.
So Captain Dingus, I think it was. Shout out to him. I met Lomicron at the event. Great guy. He came up for pizza the first night, Friday night. There was a bunch of us, about 50 of us. I think I took pictures on YouTube too, if you guys were, or maybe it was on Twitter. But definitely such an amazing community, such an amazing passion from these guys, including that guy who's got the 2 tats on the forearm. So great question. Negative abilities. And I think what he's getting at is that not there in other card games, every stat and ability you have isn't necessarily good. You can have, I'm thinking of Lord of the Rings living card game. I'm going to drop a card right now. So Lord of the Rings living card game is a collectible card game, not entirely unlike Splinterlands. It of course has different mechanics and different artwork and different, lore and whatnot, but the basis of it is that you collect X amount of cards and then you walk through the adventures that the game lays in front of you. And one of the heroes in the game is Saruman. And you guys, if you know Lord of the Rings, you know Saruman's a villain. And so, interestingly, as Captain Dingus was alluding to, like, what if we had negative abilities? What if we had things that weren't necessarily good? Look at the wording of Saruman. When a player card effect would reduce your threat by any amount, reduce that amount to 1. And so that might be confusing wording if you don't know this game, but what it boils down to is this. There are times where, well, first of all, threat is bad. You want to keep your threat low. And this card is saying there are times when you are able to control and manipulate your threat and keep it low. This game is saying if you've selected this hero as, and you got to use hero in quotations because he's a villain, but in certain moments you could play as him. And if you were to do so, he would have a negative effect on your party. And he would impair your ability to reduce or to control your threat meter. And that would cause you to die sooner. So that's the easiest way I can explain it without giving you the whole background of this amazing game. If you don't know Lord of the Rings living card game, you should. It's awesome. It is a physical collectible card game, so it's different than Splinterlands. It's a cooperative collectible card game, which is great for two to four of your friends just sitting around a table talking and enjoying the universe of Lord of the Rings. So it's an amazing game. But in that wording, you see an example of what could be. And you can imagine that there would be cards in Splinterlands where, you know, the Exploding Dwarf has Blast, he has Piercing, he has Retaliate, he has Trample. Those are all amazing. They are beneficial to your team. It could be the case, however, that there was a new ability, including Redemption. We know Redemption. Let's go to Peak Monsters. And if we look up Redemption, you find a card that has, like Exploding Rats, it has Redemption at level 5. Redemption, when this monster dies, it does 2 damage to all enemy monsters. That actually only does 1. That wording is old. It does 1 damage to all enemy monsters. And it used to originally be 2 damage. So that's funny that that's still there. So it's 1 damage. My point in bringing it up is it does damage to enemy monsters. What if it did damage to every monster? It's a redemption. It's an explosion. It's called redemption, so it makes sense that it only affects your enemy. But you know, you could envision an ability that just detonates as it dies. It just goes nova and damages everybody nearby, everybody beside it. What about that? If you had your monster in the first position, it would damage your enemy's first position and your own second position. That's not entirely good. Those sorts of abilities are not necessarily positive. It could help you and it could hurt you. But you would then have to decide, is the package of this card, is the total utility of this monster or summoner worth that impairment? Just like we would with Saruman. If you're playing the game, you would have to decide if these amazing abilities, and I know, again, you maybe don't know the game, but he's very powerful, and you would have to decide if the power and utility of the card outweighs its impairment to your team. That's what I think Captain Dingus was talking about, and I totally think it's possible. In fact, Matt seems to agree that it's a good idea. And so I think we can probably expect things like that to come along, but he alluded to how it would be difficult to convey this within the UI. You don't want a new player playing the game thinking, these are my monsters, I'm going to put them in, they're all going to be good. They help me, they're my team. And then misunderstanding that, in fact, the ramification of some of the abilities are actually negative. And so that would that would add a complexity to the game for a new person that it might cause struggle. It would be great for us, you know, vets who really know the game and like nuance and to add layers to the complexity. And again, it would probably be an amazing card with this one kind of detriment, right? You'd almost expect like an overpower. That's why the questioner was saying, like, it could probably be overpowered, but it would have this one bad thing. And sounds like a great idea. Sounds like an amazing way to add complexity to our already fun and challenging game. And that second question.
And if I could ask just like one more quick question. So the advent of a neutral summoner brings the question, will there be any cross splinter or mixing splinters?
Will there be any cross splinters or mixing splinters where you could potentially have a summoner who is both fire and water, and he can deploy fire, water, neutral monsters. That's pretty interesting. I actually wondered on one of my videos with you guys if the neutral summoner would be capable of deploying any monster at all. And that would be the idea that he's describing, that it would be cross, it would be like uni-splinter, like it would be universal. It would apply to all monsters, or maybe not all, but like I say, 2 or 3 splinters at a time. And I think that would be really cool too. And clearly Matt thinks it's an interesting idea and they've considered it, but not with this neutral summoner, Lux Vega. So much room for development, so many exciting new kind of corners to try. And it seems clear to me that this is going to be a game that grows in complexity and nuance. And therefore, the expertise and the time and attention that you bring to this game is always going to be valued and produce value, because it actually takes a great deal of expertise and knowledge to understand the comprehensive synergies and counters to counters already. But that is going to grow in depth and complexity as we see new twists and turns, like summoners that handle more than one splinter, or negative abilities that actually hurt your own team too. I'm so excited, and this to me was really important for us to hear. I wonder if you guys think that either of these would be bad for the game. I could see how summoners that cover 2 or 3 splinters would be overpowered. Maybe that would be game breaking, but I gotta put my trust in Matt and the team to really do that well. So I'm super excited to see these things. I expect that we will see them based on the tone with which Matt answered. And I thought it was an amazing question. And it was, I believe it's, well, Lamacron on Discord. So shout out to him. And really nice meeting you, dude. Have an amazing day, guys. Thank you so much for checking out the video. God bless.